And, obviously we say we think of good and we think of Jesus, right? Well, in this story, when you think of evil, you could think of Herod the Great, right? Herod was a bad dude, and Herod, of course, wanted to kill Jesus. Now, keep in mind when we're talking about Herod, when we think of that name, we're actually talking about a dynasty. So, we also know, when Jesus was on trial, went before Herod, all that. Sometimes people will read that, and if they don't know any better, they think, oh, well, this Herod guy, he's been around for a long time. Well, no, that's actually a different Herod. This is a dynasty. So that's the same family, right? But today we're talking about Herod the Great. And this guy, he was evil, and he was also really paranoid. He's famous for killing his own sons. And we often think about this guy and we think, oh man, what a crazy guy, what a paranoid guy. But actually, to an extent, if we understand what's going on in this time, in this part of the world, and when we understand how he came to power, we realize that maybe his paranoia is not all that crazy, because it's almost like an episode of The West Wing, where he has power, but he's struggling for power all the time, right? And think about how Herod came to power. So Herod, ethnically part Jewish, although the Jews didn't consider him Jewish. But what he does is he goes to the Romans. Now remember the time period we're in, we're close to the time of the birth of Christ. And he goes to the Romans and he says to the Romans, well, you have a couple of problems. And the Romans did indeed have a couple of problems, major problems in this part of the world. Jesse, you could put up that map. In Judea, there's a couple of major problems here. Number one, the Jews are extremely patriotic people, and they do not like the Romans telling them what to do. And there's a lot of problems with rebellions and revolts and that sort of thing. Now, why do the Romans care so much about this part of the world? It's because it serves as a sort of buffer or safety area between their empire and their enemies to the east, okay? So you remember the Persians. Sometimes if you're a student of history, you think, oh yeah, the Persians, yeah. So the Greeks came along and took care of them, and then they were never a problem again. And so they definitely weren't a problem for the Romans, right? Well, actually, that would be wrong. Even though the Persians were defeated, they're still on the radar here, or at least their descendants are. And in fact, they're still around to this day. We call them Iranians, right? And they're still around in this time period, around the time Jesus is born. And they're still a pretty big threat to the Romans, these descendants of the Persians, okay? So Herod realizes, and he goes to the Romans, and he's like, you got two problems. You got your enemies to the east, and you got this problem with the Jewish people. They don't want you there. So Herod says, let's do this. I'll be sort of he goes and he bends the knee to the Romans, and he says, I'll sort of be a proxy king for you. I know the Jews. I know their customs. I know their traditions. So I'll be their king. I'll keep them happy. I'll be the people pleaser. I'll keep peace in this region so the Jews don't keep rebelling against you. And then I'll also protect this land for you in this area, and I'll keep your enemies in check on the eastern front. So it's all political. Herod the Great comes to power. It's completely political. So you can kind of see where his paranoia comes from. There's a lot of interest in his kingdom and in this part of the world. And a lot of people would consider him not legitimately a ruler or king. And so he's constantly thinking about potential threats, even within his own household. This is what's happening in this time, in this part of the world, when Jesus is born.